Welcome into the Division II Baseball Podcast. Joined today by Pat Evers, head coach at Maryville. The Saints doing a good job right now. They've started to really play their best baseball of the season, at least at this point. And we're going to talk to their head coach all about it today, Coach Evers. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. You guys have won 9 games in a row. What's been working as of late? I know it's a little bit slow out of the gate, but it seems like you guys are turning it on at the right time.
Yeah, no, it's baseball's a little bit more fun over the last couple of weeks than it was the first, 4 or 5 weeks of the season. So, I don't know what to put a finger on it. I think the one thing is probably we started pitching it a little bit more consistently, which I thought was something was going to be a strength of ours going into the season. And hey, I think it, you got a little bit slow out of the gate, whether it was offensively kind of struggling a little bit, trying to hit our stride. We kind of got a little bit banged up on the positional side. And then, for whatever reason, it took about 20 games, 25 games. You kind of start figuring out, hey, you learn about yourself and, hey, these are the things we're doing well. These are the things we're not doing well. And, hey, for whatever reason, we knew eventually it would kind of turn, and fortunately, kind of got on a roll. And I think a lot of this stuff early, it was like, hey, you'd win 1, lose 1, win 2, lose 2, and I think we always felt like once we could get over the hump and just could put together a good weekend, that might be something to gain a little bit of momentum and get on a roll a little bit. Obviously, we've been fortunate to do that.
Now, you do mention pitching, Coach, and over this win streak, especially, you've allowed no more than 5 runs in a game, and 3 or fewer in 7 of those 9 games, especially in an offensive heavy conference like the GLVC. Has there been any difference of messaging towards the pitching staff, or what kind of have you seen change recently?
I don't know if it was anything different on the messaging standpoint. I think we talked to the guys when it was we went through a rough stretch there where, hey, you kind of knew hey, the arms were more capable than we were performing. And some of the numbers just didn't necessarily make sense. It's hey, even if whether it was the amount of hits given up, I think we had the one game against Missouri S&T, we hit 7 guys in an inning. It's hey, some of the things were just if you keep playing, this is eventually going to, things will kind of figure themselves out. It'll take care of it. We're not the numbers probably look a little bit worse, especially some of those guys that have thrown out of the bullpen, but I think we knew they were much more talented and much more capable than what the numbers reflected. And I think it was just a matter of, hey, getting out there and playing the games and just getting more opportunities. And those guys, just like anything, is having a little bit of success and get some confidence back. And, it was a weird stretch there. It seemed like every time in March, the league is notoriously a little bit more and more offensive. Some of the ballparks, and ours is just like some of the other ones where it can play short at times, especially when the wind's blowing out. And for whatever reason, it seemed like every time we were playing a game, it was, hey, winds are gusting up to 30 miles an hour straight out. And then all of a sudden pitchers that you thought were making some, hey, good pitches, and it's a fly ball. And in a lot of cases, hey, it's not a well hit ball. And all of a sudden it sneaks out. And it's no, it was hey, I'm out of the inning with the fly out to right. And no, instead it's a 3-run home run. So I think it probably did a little bit as far as with some of our arms, just kind of mentally wearing on them. And then you probably battle, hey, I've got to be perfect. I don't want to make a mistake. And, any pitcher that goes out there and they kind of have that mentality, usually you're going to end up making mistakes. So I don't think it was anything different with the messaging. I think it was just, hey, stick to what we're doing. And, hey, the tides are going to kind of change here.
You mentioned something to the effect of you knew at some point that it would turn around after a tougher start to the season. Was that a belief that you had, or did you really feel that was just the sense in the locker room? Because I know coming into this season, the thoughts about the Maryville Saints were particularly high with a lot of the talent that you had, and you've done a great job over the last few seasons, even with losing a handful of guys, which I want to get to later on about your coaching staff, but you still have found a way just to do great work in that respect. So was that a belief that you felt was within the locker room even through the slow start?
Yeah, I think I believe that, and I think I definitely did, and I think our coaching staff did, and I would talk to just coaching friends, get people that I knew, and just you normally get done with the weekend, and you kind of rehash what was good, what was bad, and just kind of have an opportunity to vent. And I would sit there. I was like, I know I haven't completely lost my mind. Like I know we have good players here, and there's guys that they go about it the right way. The great work ethics. They handle their business. It's like we're doing everything kind of right. Like I don't think I've all of a sudden. I might not be the best coach in the world, but I also knew like I'm not terrible at this. I knew we were a little bit better than we were playing, and you kind of trusted it's eventually going to turn. I think we got enough. We got enough older guys that have kind of been through this and had experience in college baseball where they knew like, hey, this is something's weird. This isn't right. Like I know we haven't kind of lost it, and I think mentally it can be a little bit brutal on guys going through that stretch. And I think it's also a good thing for our team that we're able to kind of hey, deal with the adversity, and you kind of find a little bit more about yourselves and what kind of teammates you are and what your makeup's kind of like. So, it's not any way you want to draw it up. Obviously, you want to go out there and hey, I wish we were 30-3 or whatever it might be, but not everything's going to go perfect. So I think it's definitely something. It made us better going through that stretch, whether it's the first 25 games where you're kind of really fighting it and just kind of feeling like you were beating your head against the wall. So. It's been nice to get on a little bit of a stretch, and hopefully we can kind of keep it going.
And on that stretch, you have strikeout to walk ratio, such an important metric in Division II baseball. Teams that typically have higher ones typically last longer in the postseason. You have 3 starters right now with a strikeout to walk ratio above 4.5. Now, from your perspective, in terms of building out a weekend with your 4-game weekends, how does that help with when you have 3 guys that are able to throw strikes, and how does that help with, maybe managing that bullpen throughout the weekend?
Yeah, it makes it so much easier. And, we're pretty fortunate, and it's not to take anything, the first 3 guys that we roll out, and we made one minor adjustment. Braden Smith started throwing that first game of the weekend as opposed to Ben Gregory, who did the first couple weeks. And kind of it was a little bit the initial thing where, Braden was typically a little bit more efficient with the pitches and trying to mix something up and try something a little bit different. But, all those guys have really done a great job as far as, hey, attacking with their stuff. I think they're all guys that are really talented, compete, go at the batter. And, I think that's one difference in Ben Gregory from his first 2 years. And it's not that it ever was not a strike thrower necessarily, but it's just, hey, it's added a third pitch that he's kind of throwing more often and just attacking with the fastball. And, I think at times it was maybe through the first couple of years, hey, we're trying to miss bats as opposed to, hey, just trust your stuff and attack in the zone. And, hey, the stuff's good enough and kind of let it play. So, it's been nice. And I think they kind of feed off each other a little bit. And Ryan Hoshaw's done a great job in the 4 spot, just as far as making sure, heck, he slid up, had a big start against the University of Indianapolis a couple weeks back, and has done a really good job as far as making sure, hey, that Sunday, that 4th game, just keep us in the ball game and getting through 5 or 6, and then you can kind of open it up to the bullpen after that.
I know I teased bringing up at least your coaching staff. I do find it interesting, at least because you've got 3 guys on your staff that really, they are recent Maryville Saints, really recent in Andy and Michael, and then Joey as well. Just guys who, you don't find like a staff of guys that like are all conference caliber players, a ton of them on your staff. Then you have Alec as well. And then Dave, who has a ton of experience. I find the staff that you've put together very, very impressive. How have you gone about doing that? And what do you think those guys, I guess particularly the newer guys who just were playing on the team, have brought to the table this year?
I think it's been great. Like Andy and Michael have done a phenomenal job. I thought this, and I might have said this on here last year, I thought Andy Button was pound for pound as good of a college baseball player I ever coached, as far as knowing who he was and as far as the baseball IQ. And obviously it's someone that's been around the game as a coach's son, dad coached at the college level. So you kind of knew what you were getting. It's a really high baseball IQ, great work ethic. Same thing with Michael Gould, who was a 4-year starter for us here. And, more than anything, they're obviously we're really successful baseball players here, great leaders, great ambassadors for our program, but more than anything, they're just really good people. They're the people you want to surround yourself with and you want to be around day to day. And I think it's been great for our players just to have a resource of, hey, here's our guys that have just recently got done going through it and can kind of talk them off the ledge a little bit when things are going bad, can kind of keep it in check. I think they're not too far removed from, hey, being in that exact same spot. And I think they did a really good job just as far as relating with our guys and interacting with them, and they've been they've been huge, great assets. Like I can't say enough good things about them.
And on the topic of one of those coaches, Michael Gould, you give him an opportunity to coach, and he still is trying to pursue professional baseball. Well, fortunately enough, he signs a contract with the Schaumburg Boomers a couple days ago. What is that like for the program to be able to not only have guys who do well in the program, but then have the opportunity to play professional baseball?
No, it's great. And obviously, he kind of pursued it all last summer and just the timing of it. Hey, the opportunity didn't necessarily present himself. And hey, we couldn't be more happy. He's been, grinding through here. It's every day. He's in the weight room. It's still hitting. It's getting all of his work in before we get anything started with our guys. And, you knew he was going to get an opportunity. And, the unfortunate thing is, this last weekend is probably going to be our last weekend happening around here before he has to report to spring training up in Schaumburg. But, that's, you want to see those guys be able to continue their careers and go play as long as you can. And obviously Michael gets to do that. And hey, Coach Whaley, same boat. Coach Whaley leaves next week and goes over to the Gateway Grizzlies for I think it's his third or fourth year with them playing in the Frontier League. So it's kind of like the live at bats that get going every week here. Coach Whaley's out there throwing to our hitters, throwing to our guys. Michael's jumping in. It's kind of been unique this year. There's been enough, whether it's guys before they headed out to spring training. We had Jacob Krager, who was a former player with us that was here the entire winter, interacting, being around our guys, lifting, throwing with them before he reported. There was a couple other pro guys in the area doing the same thing. So it's been great for our guys to be able to see that, just the amount of guys that come in here day to day and get their work in, and you just get to see, how a professional athlete kind of goes about their business.
I want to ask about Ambrose Russo and just the way you've seen him play this season's been like a really big plug offensively for you guys. It seems like coming over and fitting in with the program, obviously was very familiar with the area, but what is your thoughts on just his leadership with this offense right now?
It's been really good. And obviously, we lost a big piece that was at the top of the order last year when Jack Z-Big transferred, so you needed someone, and as important that was the last couple of years when you had Jack in that role, you had to kind of find it, and just the timing of it was kind of going through the portal, and you lost Bergman, who was Colin Bergman, that was in center field for us last year, so it was kind of a perfect fit. I don't know if we would thought the power numbers would have kind of been what they were for Ambrose so far, but it's someone that takes a really good AB, someone that's been around college baseball, someone that's played at a high level, and kind of familiarity from the league as well. Whenever Lindenwood was a GLVC member, so it's great when you have someone at the top of the order that's able to kind of set it up, and he does a great job. Heck, I think we knew he was going to be good for us. I think he's probably exceeded our expectations.
Someone who out of the gate has really done well, and especially as of recently, 5 of his last six games, he's had a multi-hit game, and that's freshman Jace Burton. Talk a little bit about how, the recruiting process and getting him from Indiana to come to Maryville, and, just his impact so far with the team.
The recruiting process is a little bit different with Jace. So that was something kind of the end of June. We lost the infielder when Jack Z-Big went to the portal and transferred to Illinois. So Jace is someone that we had a prior relationship with. We recruited him out of high school. Obviously, he went to Indiana State. They had the coaching change there, and it was kind of perfect timing in the sense where we lost someone in the portal, and hey, the next day he hopped in the portal. So it kind of ended up being a perfect fit. So it was about a 24 or 36-hour turnaround, which probably doesn't necessarily happen like that. But Jason's done a great job, and he's kind of battled through some stuff. Obviously, he started off playing shortstop for us and is kind of, offensively as well. He's been performing, and the same thing on the defensive side of it is kind of grinding through with a lot of injuries, whether it's stuff that was happening in the fall, stuff he's playing with now, and just a real high baseball IQ, good defender, and offensively every week it seems like he gets a little bit better.
Another guy too, it seems like one part of your lineup is you have a lot of experienced outfielders on this team. And it's like I look at what Nick Daughtery did last weekend. He had a huge week, and you guys have a lot of guys that can step in and play. How do you feel like the depth is with the outfield right now?
I think the depth has been a strength in the outfield, and I think probably I would have said it for the entire roster. We just kind of within the infield got banged up a little bit, but the one thing that was unique, obviously we lost a lot from our lineup last year. What our regular 9 would have kind of been that was out there most consistently, and Nick Daugherty's a perfect example of someone you recruited because you liked him and you thought they could contribute, and it just so happened whether you had the older guys that were ahead of him. You knew what was in there. Obviously, he's got a lot of experience. He's been around it. And, he kind of ran with some of the opportunities that presented themselves. And, Dom Sharp and Camden Ruby were both guys that were kind of, I don't want to say in and out of the lineup last year. They were playing more than they weren't, but both guys that were kind of platooned a little bit, mixed between DH, playing the outfield. They were playing 2 games out of a weekend or 3 games out of a weekend. And, obviously they've been more consistently in the lineup. So you felt like you still had that experience returning, even though those were guys that didn't start necessarily every game. But, it's been nice to kind of see over the last 10 days, 2 weeks, the Camden Ruby being the player that we expect him to be. Dom Sharp really kind of getting going offensively. So, it's definitely played in to be a strength.
And Coach, I want to talk a little bit about the GLVC, this season, 3 weeks left of the regular season. What have you seen in terms of talent in the GLVC this year compared to years past? Because it definitely seems like it's a lot closer race in terms of, the top seeded team versus, the final 8th seeded team in the conference or the conference tournament.
Yeah, I think there's definitely more parity throughout the league, top to bottom. From the talent, I'm probably not a great. I think there's a lot of really good players. And I think the one thing that's kind of unique, and maybe you see this throughout all of college baseball now, but just the impacts of, transfer portal, guys in and out, whether it's, some of those players that had that extra year of eligibility, whatever it might be. I think you see a little bit more turnover that might happen with some of the rosters. And so I think year to year, you're not seeing as many guys. Well, hey, that guy's been here for the last 3 or 4 years. So I think there's been more parity within it, and I think there's definitely a lot of opportunities as far as if you are someone, you can turn it over really quick. And I think I don't know if there's a traditional, here's been the top couple schools in the conference, or here's traditionally been the schools that have kind of been towards the bottom third. But I think we got a lot of really good coaches that put some time in, and I think programs are improving from the bottom up, and I think it's made for a more competitive conference.
Talking about just the greater landscape of college baseball, I just want to touch on, you brought him up earlier, but with Braden Smith and the way he's thrown this season, obviously it seems like you and your staff are pleased with his efforts, especially as of late. Like, for a young guy, I know he had 15 appearances last year, but to come in and just see what happened a couple weeks ago, gets blown up at McKendree, and then comes out and has a couple of gems. That's tough to do for a young guy. And I know that he's had a couple of outings now where he's really shined just as a sophomore. My question in all that is, with a guy like that being able to play as a freshman, do you feel like you're going to start trying to take advantage of that rule next year where you can still redshirt if you play 14, 15 games and try to get more freshman arms? Is that something that's going to be part of the process?
I don't know. I probably haven't thought about it as much, whether that's like the one thing that we've done about 75% of our rosters guys that have come from the high school side of it. So I think it's always something that we've recruited. And, if you look at, like, if you look at the rotation that we have, I mean, there's one transfer in there, but hey, 3 of the 4 guys that are going on the weekends are all guys that came in here on the high school side of it. And, Hoshaw would have been someone that probably, heck, he got injured his freshman year, would have probably thrown in at a larger role. And, Ben Gregory started as a freshman. Braden Smith, I think, was more than capable. And honestly, if you look at the numbers from the freshman year, it would have been like, oh, those are just kind of average, okay numbers. But, heck, he was the first guy we brought out of the pen in game 1 of the year at Southern Arkansas last year. Like, I think we knew Braden's a winner. Braden's an ultimate competitor. Braden's hey, he's definitely a number 1 arm, and just the makeup and everything he does. And I think we feel like we got two of those guys between him and Ben Gregory. So, for us, it doesn't matter. Like, hey, we've always recruited freshmen. Our expectation here is hopefully when we're recruiting somebody, they come in and play right away. And heck, we were pretty fortunate. A lot of those guys in those teams, the last couple of years, they were regional teams, whether it was Elias Stevens or Michael Gould or Jacob Krager. I mean, those were all guys that came in here and started kind of out of high school, and every single year they improved and gotten better. And, that's something we're going to continue to do. And I guess the nice thing with the pitcher coming in as a freshman next year, hopefully they get to do it for 4 more years after that freshman year. But, we're definitely going to be counting on those guys coming in next year that we recruited, and those freshmen to come in here and contribute right away.
And Coach, on the opposite side of that spectrum, the seniors, your final home series coming up this weekend, the little bit about just the impact that the seniors have brought to this Maryville program.
We've had a really good group, and I think it's, heck, there's a handful of those guys, 3 or 4 of them that, hey, I came in here and I'm just here for a year, whether it's a Cameron Macon, a Cole Chrisman, Ambrose Russo. But, there's other ones. And I know, heck, Michael Long's been a phenomenal team leader for us over the last couple of years. And I know he probably hasn't had the year, he wanted to have, but we were probably expecting him to get off the start. Matt Arnold's been an anchor for us behind the plate the last couple of seasons. So it's a bunch of guys that have led by example. Phil Reinhardt right up there, that's been a staple in our bullpen the last few years. I mean, they've coming to work here, practice, weight room, everything else. Like, I know everyone says, hey, we got the greatest kids in the world, but it's really, there's never a bad day. Heck, we've had a group, there's no distractions. It's all business. They come in here, they handle their business. They're fun to be around. And, I think you feel like you got a responsible group that almost police themselves and keep everyone accountable. And I think that's that's the best thing you'd ask for your seniors.
And Coach, we thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I know we touched on the Saints and, 22-15 now, winning 9 in a row, starting to play better. You had the big week this past week from Dominic Sharp as well, another guy that is in that mix of just talking about how good you guys are on the outfield. My final question is just about him. Was how impressed were you just watching that from the dugout this weekend, what he was doing?
I don't know. I knew it was like he always takes a good at bat, and I kind of knew he was having a good weekend. Then by the end of it, I think he hit the home run to lead off the game in that first inning on Sunday. I was like, man, that might be player of the week. I was like, it finally kind of clicked. Like, man, he's barreled a lot of balls this past week, and I think, hey, another guy that probably got off to a slow start, and the bat to ball skills are really good, and you knew it was kind of getting going. So the one fun thing over this stretch, and it's not just, hey, Dom's been doing great. Like, it's been somebody new, it seems like, every game. And it hasn't been a lineup where maybe it been the past couple of years where you had a few guys that had some really offensive gaudy numbers, whether it was home runs or doubles or whatever it might be. It's been a 1 through 9 collective kind of team effort where, hey, we've had to win in a variety of different ways, and you've kind of had to scratch a run here or there. So it's been you haven't had to rely on as many, like, hey, those outstanding individual performances. It's really been a completely team effort. It's been fun to watch, somebody else step up every day.
And coach, final question I have for you is, like a lot of teams in the Midwest this season, you had faced some challenges in terms of playing games. The Pittsburgh State series was canceled. That round robin where you were going to go to Drury was canceled, and so you eventually just played Saginaw Valley. Kind of, what has some challenges been on your end in terms of just trying to get these games in and trying to make sure that you get to that 50 game allotment?
Yeah, heck, I think I drive my administration nuts as far as, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to change this, we're going to go try and find a game. Like, you lose the opening weekend, and it's kind of fun. We opened up a week later than we typically do, just because they had some facility stuff going on, and we had a new indoor, and so for whatever reasons we delayed it by a week, and then all of a sudden you get the first weekend snowed out, and we kind of end up adding a fourth game onto some series. You add midweeks, a couple midweeks in there. And the one thing I'd probably with our guys that, if you had to look back and what the difference was, or why do you kind of get off to a slow start, or what could have been different, like it was pretty much right when we started, it was, hey, doubleheader, midweek, doubleheader. Like it was just a lot of games in a short period of time, when you probably look back when with as many new guys, like, hey, we lacked some opportunity. We needed to practice. We needed to kind of catch our breath a little bit. And I think it was never, once you saw, hey, here's kind of what's going wrong, we just had game after game after game, and you never really got to sit there and take a break and practice and kind of get back to some of the basics. And then, obviously we had a couple injuries mixed in there where it was like, hey, we can finally practice now, but then now we don't want to get anybody else banged up because we're thin at a spot here or there. So it's definitely a challenge. You never know. It's, hey, at the end of January, it's 50 degrees here and you're inter-squadding outside and you wish you were playing. And then 2 weeks later, there's 6 inches of snow on the field and you're trying to figure out, hey, with the turf, how you get the plow on, and we got to push the snow, and you got guys working in shifts, removing snow from the field. So it's always eventful. I mean, we need to go further. You get to scheduling, you think, I'm never doing this again. Like, we're just getting out of town and going as far south in the upcoming years. But hey, there's always challenges in the Midwest. It's 38 degrees playing a doubleheader is not the most fun thing. But so we need to go find some warmer weather, I think, in the future.
Well, the fun thing will be just continuing to follow the Great Lakes Valley Conference. Lewis at the top right now. UIS is on a heater. Maryville's going hard right now. And then you got UIndy, who's been to carry each the last 2 years. So it's kind of cool at the top right now. It's going to be fun. And we thank you so much for continuing to support us and take time to talk with us today. We really, really enjoyed the conversation, Coach.
Yeah, hopefully you guys don't jinx us. And then, hey, as always, hey, appreciate everything you guys do. I think it's fantastic. I know I've told you this before. I know everybody does, but it really is great.
And that is head coach Pat Evers at Maryville University.